A warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm super excited to share with you today some really great stories that I hope are inspirational and are able to inspire you in your career path. Over the last couple of sessions, we have been exploring my career, and it's been a long, exciting career. So this is the third in the episode. So if you want to learn more, please do check out the other two. But to help me on my way today, I've got the fabulous Angel here, and I'm just going to bring her in. Welcome, Angel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Thank you so much for being with me today. Angel is part of my team, and she's going to hear things she has never heard before, and she's going to be the voice for all of you today. And it's not just about telling you a story, it's about telling you a story that will inspire you, as I say, for your career and your life. But let's start off with the humble beginning here, because I showed you in the very early series a photograph that's so powerful. Many of you will know some of these hairdressers. They went on to be incredibly famous. And obviously Vivienne is in the center, and the amazing Annie Humphreys, that little tiny lady, is the queen of color. And really fabulous, amazing people. And why do I share that with you? I share it with you because I was blessed to be around some of the greatest hairdressers in the world. A little intimidating, Angel, to say the least, but it set a foundation of a standard that 4-star was no good unless you reached 5-star. That was the only place you could go.
I love this picture. It's just an amazing photograph of amazing people.
Really It is indeed. So my early part of my career was about the precision cutting. It was about innovation. It was about being bold and daring, veils, disconnections, anti-head shape, things that I believe, Angel, will come back. Come back with a different sensibility. Disconnections are popular right now, but coming back in a different way. The bob, as high as this bob is, very, very cute with this little curved fringe. And then, of course, you know, working with texture and a classic graduation. So as you know, over the years, graduation has not been popular. It's all been about long hair and layers, but that's about to change.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
So the audition with Trevor Sorbie, and we're going to dive into that and really explore. So do you have any questions about that, Angel?
Yeah, I hear you talk about Trevor Sorbie all the time, and he was an amazing artist. What was it like auditioning for him?
Well, it's very intimidating to audition with a gentleman who's got these kind of accolades. He was the only hairdresser to this day that actually got a double page spread in British Vogue with that hairstyle that he did. So I've traveled the world with Vidal Sassoons. I've been the artistic director with Vidal Sassoon. I have made a success of myself in Canada, traveling and doing some great things there. So I have some degree of success. So now I think, right, I want something new and exciting. I've left Canada, I've come back to the UK, and I'm thinking, who is the best of the best? And it's now Trevor Sorbie. Trevor had the same education as myself at Vidal Sassoon. So there was a commonality there. He was an artistic director, as I was. So there was that connection. So in auditioning for him, it was probably one of the most intimidating things ever. He sat there with his arms folded, and he just stared at me. And I did one hairstyle. I went. Then I did the next hairstyle for him, and just carried on, just sitting there looking.
Oh, that's so intimidating. What kind of hairstyles did you have to do? Was it something specific, or was it creative? You had to come up with it on your own?
It was just 2 haircuts that are pretty generic. So finished them. And during that whole process, it was such a fascinating thing. How many of you had this where you're presenting yourself to the world, but you have another conversation going on? So it feels like your body is there, but your mind and everything else is somewhere completely different. So I'm having this conversation with myself saying, oh my gosh, this is a disaster. Who am I kidding? I start to erase unconsciously all the success I've had. I start to invalidate it because right now I feel so tiny in the presence of a giant. And so I finish the hairstyle, then I show him my portfolio of some of the pictures that I just showed you and plenty more, many of which have been published. So he says to me, "So you call yourself a hairdresser?" And I'm thinking,
Ouch.
tear me apart, why don't you? And I went, "Well, I'm not the plumber." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "No." He said, "You're not a hairdresser." I said, "Well, then what am I?" He said, "You cut hair, and you cut hair very well, but you're not a hairdresser." He says, "You can't dress hair." Now, bear in mind, I did 2 years at the London College of Fashion in training for film and theatre. I did have dresswork skills, but they were been put in a box. I didn't know. This is the first profound lesson. How do you take a technique and keep it relevant today? How do you do something that you learned 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and bring it through to today? How do you work with that client who loved the glamour of a particular decade, but now 20, 30 years later, she's still hanging on to the memory of it and wants a bit of that, but time has moved on and she's stuck in a time warp. She wore long hair in her, as a 16-year-old, but now as she's 40, maybe it's not as appropriate anymore. It needs to be modernized, right? So we become sort of almost blinded by whatever that may be. So for myself, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I do have dressing skills, but I don't know how to apply it to today. So after he said to me, well, you're not really a hairdresser, he said, he just looked at me and I said, well, I want to learn. He said, how much do you want to learn? I said, I want to really learn. He said, well, if you're teachable, I'll teach you. I said, absolutely. So I went on a journey with him. Not very long after, I became his artistic director. And I then started to have an extraordinary journey. But the blessing of all was to be with this brilliant man. So as tough as he was in his standards, he was the most kind, loving, caring, creative genius of a person. So there was a guard there that was like, okay, so let's just see what you're all about. So obviously, in seeing this man's genius and seeing, wow, okay, you did this hairstyle. So he told the great story about this. He was doing a haircut following the perimeter of the hairline, and he thought it was a little bit tough, so he brushed it back, and that was the birth of the wedge. So by an accident, something new was born. So, and then again, another great lesson for us all, that sometimes in a mistake is a gift. If we can see through it, don't panic, because there's like the magic right there. So I was so blessed because I got to see Trevor work on the most extraordinary hairstyles, standing by his side, being a sectioning clip, holding the hair, being just with him and watching. I mean, I have front seat. I remember when we did this and he created the book, some of the images in the Trevor Sorbie book, I was just there on set. And I remember how we did this. We sculpted the hair on a board in these beautiful waves, and obviously they were colored, and then we had attached them to the head, and just the genius. So to be on set watching the photo shoot, watching that whole protocol with the greatest hairdresser in the world was absolutely extraordinary. So I'm so glad I went through the discomfort of the audition and feeling totally intimidated, because I felt so small. There was only one place to go, which was to grow.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. It sounds really glamorous and like it was a very, just a really good way for you to grow. What was it like to be, just like you used the term, you were the sectioning clip? Like, I feel like that's just such an honor to assist somebody of that greatness. How did
It
you feel?
is. And also you've got to be a great assistant,
Mm-hmm.
because at Sassoons I learned how to assist. And there's one thing that really does separate, I think, the British hairdressers from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
If you go through a program of an apprenticeship, you learn how to assist. You learn how to anticipate. You learn to think 5 steps ahead. You learn where to stand. You learn how to be silent. You learn when to say something, when to be quiet. You just learn those things. you're always ahead because you're serving and you're learning, but you must always be aware of what's going on and how you support. And you're like a rock, an anchor for that person, which is amazing. And sadly, today, there are not many opportunities to really assist and be mentored. But for any of you to have the opportunity and just say, listen, I will come and clean, I will come and do whatever it takes just to be present and do that. That's the magic. And so, I was very, very, very blessed to be in that situation, which was pretty incredible. And then, of course, the wolf haircut, the story about that, when Trevor wanted to just create these lovely little edges on the hair that were light and do this extraordinary effect. And today, I just think it's so cool. The root, I mean, think about it. Now we intentionally root hair. This photograph is, I think it was created in the 80s, maybe the early 80s. So how profound is that we think it's new and truly it's not?
Amazing. That looks that looks like a modern photo.
And then I was with Trevor when he developed the scrunch. So he was the king of the scrunch technique. So it was the beginning of wash and wear. And it was scrunching the hair in our hands and gently molding it and just getting this incredible texture in the hair. And when Trevor did this and did it for a live performance, I mean, the place was just mobbed with people so excited to see something they hadn't seen before. And actually, guys, when you really think about it, when was the last time you saw something for the very first time? Like the first time ever that look has been created. Today, it's getting harder and harder to find originality. There's a fusion of decades, there's a fusion of sensibilities, but this was so innovative at the time. Do you love the look?
I do love the look, yes. It's beautiful. Yeah, I feel like you could even wear that today. I feel like, I mean, it's timeless.
Yes, it is.
Let's see. This looks like a fun event. Where was this?
So this was the British Hairdressing Awards, and Trevor won the British Hairdressing Awards numerous times. And I was his artistic director, and you can see me giggling there. I was nominated one year for the London Hairdresser, and I was up against Anthony Muscola, who at that time it was Tony and Guy, and then of course Trevor, and I didn't win, but that's okay because, the genius of him was pretty amazing. So, it's quite something to be around that. And then I was put in charge of being the art director for the Academy, which was on Savile Row, which is the street in London where all the bespoke tailoring takes place. So it was a very prestigious street. We opened the Academy and then people flocked to us from all over the world. And what do you think of this suit?
I love this suit. It's a little bit outrageous, but it's really cool.
I think it was Comme des Garçons, and I think it cost me an absolute fortune. And I just love the shoulder pads. I mean, I don't know what that ridiculous hairstyle is, but clearly, it's a ridiculous hairstyle. But yeah, it was so important to be dressed up. I mean, I dressed myself up as best as I could to look the part. And I always say to people, you know what? If you look the part, you're halfway there because people will be impressed with what they see. And then you've got to try and learn to act the part, right? But, it's very intimidating when you're a young female, you're in London, you have this title, and now you've got hairdressers from all over the world coming to see you. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? So, yeah, it was pretty exciting. And so that was the beginning for me of having a responsibility where I'm now the flagship for Trevor Sorbie, and that was pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, traveling the world. I started to travel the world, and it was just such an incredible experience to just go everywhere with Trevor through Europe and just start to be creative.
That sounds really, really glamorous. Like, what was it like to be among the best in the world at that time?
Well, to be with the best in the world, it's pretty daunting and so exciting because the thing is, you see, again, innovation. I used to study these brilliant people and think, they've got this model there and they could go 20 different ways. They could do what everybody else is doing, but they're not going to do that. They're going to be original. They're going to be innovative. There's a commonality with all the greatest hairdressers that I've worked with throughout my career, which is a hunger for something new, the attention to detail, the curiosity, the questioning mind of, like, they look at it and they're asking, well, what else could we do? What else? How do we make it different? How do we make it fresh? That creative desire. And I feel a little sad that we've kind of fallen into a uniform, a very rigid way of working. And we've found the cash cow in our industry, the balayages, the ombres, the long layers, and all of that. It's a lot of work. And on some people, it truly looks sensational, but not for everybody. And I often will say this, Lycra is a great fabric, but it's not meant for everybody. If Victoria's Secret's models are wearing it, it can look really gorgeous. But when someone's 200 pounds in weight, there's way too much information for my taste, and there's nothing wrong with being curvaceous, but there's a way to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Exactly.
and so, the same thing applies there. And so what I think we're missing right now is that we're brainwashed and we don't know it. We see somebody and we just stick the same thing on everybody, and then we get bored. And some of them may look really great, but a lot of them are just a disappointment. You've just got a client going out with hair that she should not be wearing it long in the first place, and the ends are dried out and just not gorgeous. So there's a lot to be said for that. These guys were never that. They were the innovators always. So I was around it. So I used to study what's the success, which brings me to this, which is quite interesting. This is now over 30 years old, and I've got here the progressive, the fashionable, the individual, and the conservative. And I started to think about fashion and putting people in categories. And I know some people say, well, you shouldn't put somebody in a box, but we all have a story, right? And there's a certain sensibility that comes with someone who wants to be very individual. And there's a certain sensibility with someone who likes to be very classic. And there's a very different sensibility of someone who's very traditional. And it's not to judge them. They're all uniquely unique and special, but it's understanding how to bring out the best in each person. So that to me was very important. So this was where it was born. And all these years later, kind of taken it to here. So my 3 wheels of fashion now is, does that hairstyle whisper, scream, or shout, right? Mm-hmm. Is that hairstyle sensual? Is it boyish? Is it feminine? Because that's an important aspect of being a woman. And then from the fashion perspective, is it edgy? Is it classic? Is it trendy? So these 3 wheels guide my sense of style and my aesthetic, which I analyzed when I was working with all of these famous, incredible hairdressers. That's where the seed of it began. And all these years later, it's still blooming. I'm still learning. I'm still understanding. And it's what makes my world very different to many, because a lot of people just look at the technique, and they don't look enough at the person and the lifestyle and all those things that make up the summation of who we are. How do you feel about that?
Oh my gosh. Well, honestly, since working with you and seeing all of this for the first time, it really holds a lot of value, I think, because you're right. I was in the mode of just doing, made to order hair basically, and not taking into consideration all of the different aspects of somebody's look and lifestyle. And I think if more stylists would incorporate this into their work, we could really make a difference and get away from what I like to call the casualization of America, or trends and fashion. So yeah, I think it's wonderful. And the fact that you came up with it so long ago and are still like utilizing it and teaching it and sharing it, it's amazing.
Yeah, and what's incredible is it's now being turned into an app. So by the time we're done and dusted with it, it's probably been 40 years in the making, because I've had to experiment with it. I've had to see pushback. I've had to see when you have a language barrier. Like I've used it in countries where I don't speak the language, and I've had to work with translators, and I've tested out keywords and just seen the response. And you know, at the end of the day, every woman wants to feel safe. She's in safe hands, that she can trust you. That's number one. And the fact that we touch that person and we may not have earned their trust is where most things come unraveled. And when we understand who really is sitting in our chair, and we can use a photo as an inspiration, but not as a copycat. It's a beginning, but it's not the end, right? And then when we dive into that, there's a whole other world that starts to open, and the beauty of the creation. And the beauty of seeing somebody come alive, being the best version of themselves versus a second-rate version of somebody else. That's where the beauty is for every woman, and that is the magic. So there was another time with Trevor that was so fun, which was wigs on back to front and then recutting. So both of these wigs are upside down, and it was just so much fun to work with Trevor with hair pieces, with extensions, with wigs, and just create and just do things that are really amazing. And in actual fact, the graduated bob that Vidal Sassoon created actually started off as a page boy. There was a model wearing it on stage, and she's wearing the page boy. And before that, apparently, she flipped the wig around and put it upside down. So the short front and the long back were flipped to a short back and a long front. And Vidal saw it and said, wow, that's an amazing hairstyle. And that was the beginning of the graduated bob.
Oh, gosh, amazing. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So I did wigs a lot. And I have to tell you a funny story. I was in Israel, and it was with Vidal Sassoon's. And I was in Israel, and this lady sitting in the front row, and she does have she has this hairstyle that's going back and up, and you can see the seam of the wig. So she comes up to me, and she's like really quite excited, right? And I remember seeing her in the front row thinking, oh, that's a really scary wig, right? And so she comes up to me and she says, what would you do with my wig? And she said, I don't think you realize I'm wearing a wig, right? And I'm like, oh, really? And I can see the seam, right? And she says, well, what would you recommend? And I'm looking at it thinking, throw it away. And I think, well, I can't say that, throw it away. So I'm thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to say? So I then say to her, well, have you ever considered wearing it back to front? Because the back was soft and the front was like up like this. And it was like really scary. So she goes off. The show now is going into the second half. We had an intermission, so now it's second half. So she comes back and she's sitting in front of the audience, and she's got this thing on, and the front is slapped tight on her forehead. She almost looks like Julius Caesar. And I look and I go, what just happened? And she's sitting there going, and I thought, oh my gosh, I gave this woman advice that she took literally, and she looks ridiculous. And it kind of reminds me, of this, but a really bad version. So the moral of that story is be careful the advice you give, because someone could take that seriously. But we innovated, we created, we were pushing the envelope all of the time, and traveling around the world with Trevor was pretty extraordinary. I'm wearing there in the background, that's Comme des Garçons, that outfit. That outfit cost me so much money. And the other one is another Japanese designer. I can't think of it right now. Oh, Izzy Miyake. And it was like 3 months' salary to get that jacket, and I bought it, and it was one size too large, and I didn't care. I had to have that, and I should have kept these because they would be such treasures today. Yeah. But we got dressed up, and we just traveled the world and had so much fun. And we had, look at our hairstyle I'm wearing.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
I don't know how I did that. I don't know what I'm wearing, but it's really
I
bad.
was gonna say, like, is this like a robe or what is that?
Oh, no idea, no idea. But I did shows and shows, and then clearly I put my hairstyle on clients, right? Like you do. Nothing really changes, does it? And
Yeah.
it was just so much fun. But also working with the greatest hairdressers in the world was extraordinary. It really, really was, because Eugene Suleiman, I traveled to so many amazing places with this genius. First of all, he's a sweetheart. Secondly, his gift, his talent. There is nothing this man cannot do with hair. You give him a hair challenge, he can do it. So he's worked with every major designer, for every major show, with every major magazine. He is so brilliant, and he understands the story. He understands the story of creation and what he does. And then, of course, Antoinette Binders. Antoinette, she came, and I actually did some training. Did some training with her at the academy, and incredible hairdresser, a beautiful woman, a beautiful spirit. And, you know, look at these great people. But I share these with you because Trevor actually brought out the greatness of all of these people. Angelo Simonera, one of the greatest hairdressers in the world, the innovator of printing and making these incredible patterns. His innovation's extraordinary. The wonderful Sally Brooks, who, again, award-winning hairdressers. And we all came out of the same camp of Trevor recognizing the talent and knowing how to bring this out of us. And I think the important lesson here is hire correctly, surround yourself with brilliant people, be the dumbest one in the room so you can always learn. Don't be the best in the room, be the dumbest one in the room so you can always learn. And when you train, give and set the standard high, and give and set the standard higher, and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And if you think, well, how can I do that? Just listen to any coaches who train Olympians, because that mindset is very similar to the mindset that I was around.
Mm-hmm.
Silver was not good enough. There's only one gold, and that's what you're going for. And that's the brilliance of when you're working with people like this in this ilk. So working with these incredible people and then having fun. I mean, Trevor was a lot of fun. We would always goof around. He would be hysterical, putting on wigs and just being fun. So as serious and as high as his standards were, he was about being very playful. Then, of course, he was honored by the Queen of England, and that was an incredible experience for Trevor. And again, it just goes back to the importance of being around somebody who's extraordinary, and they bring out your very, very best. So in essence, working with a genius like this, those were the eyes that looked at me when I was auditioning. Silence. Now, I could have run away and cried, which I wanted to do, or I gave it my best that I knew how to do, and then said, I want to learn. Now, as I mentioned before, I was already an artistic director at Sassoons. I had already had accomplished some great things when I left, and I built a business in Canada and did some amazing things there. I came back to the UK and I had to start all over again. And I had to understand the brand of Trevor. I had to understand what it's like to not be obsessed with your scissors and start to use a razor. Be open to using texturizing tools. Be open to backcombing. Be open to doing amazing, amazing things, right? And Trevor opened my mind to all of that and more. And what was so important is that Trevor never compromised beauty. It was beauty and it was innovation. Because if it was innovation without the beauty, then you've gone creative, but you lost good taste. Mm-hmm. Trevor taught me good taste. Trevor taught me how to find my creativity. We go off driving places and he'd say, God, look at that. And I go, it's a tree. Yeah, but we're going to do something. And I go, what? And we'd go back to his kitchen and we'd start creating, and we'd come up with collections. And the seed of the idea would move and would be translated into something new. So I grew up with innovation. I grew up with letting the imagination soar. And Trevor Sorbie's salons always had the most progressive images in their window. Not a bob, not a commercial hairstyle. It was like, whoa, you'd stop and you would look. And Trevor wanted people to come into the salon who would appreciate the art and the innovation. So he put out what he wanted to have come back in. He also put out, I'm only going to work with the best of the best hairdressers. I will train you, and you better be really good at listening, and you better be really good in following direction, and you better be really prepared to work hard. Like, I remember we were doing some shows. We would do the show at Earl's Court at that time and then do the alternative hair show. By the time we were done from one show to the next, we were up 23 hours. And then the next day repeating it.
Oh my gosh, that's intense.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
remember flying to Singapore and we were just exhausted and then prepping. And it was like, you got all the time difference and you get there and you do it. And the most amazing thing is when you're passionate about something, you find the way. You don't find the excuse. Oh, you mean I got to get up at 3 a.m? Like, for example, we do training now and we have people that on the West Coast have to get up now at 6 a.m. in the morning to be ready for a class that's going to be starting at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it's like, so what? If you want to learn, you get up, right?
You do it. Yeah,
You
exactly.
just do it. You don't make an excuse. You just do it. And I think your why has to be big enough. So what was my why? My why was, I want to be good. I want to be creative. I want to be the best version of myself I can be. And that to me was so incredibly exciting. But I think it can be very intimidating to go and hang out with the best of the best of the best. But you're the summation of who you hang out with.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Even in the real world or even in the virtual world, it rubs off. And I was so blessed to be around geniuses my entire career and know what it takes to perform at that highest level. So it saddens me a little today when you see somebody watch a reel for 30 seconds and they watch it and they go, oh yeah, I can do that. And it's like, really? Just because you watch that reel doesn't mean you can do it. It's all a lie. And I think that's the sad thing today, because today everything is so highly edited. And whether it's an image that's been edited, whether AI is part of it, whether it's a video that's been sliced from 1 hour to 30 seconds, is highly edited. Therefore, it's not real. It's entertaining. And if it gets lots of hits, then that person produces more and more of those fabulous sizzle reels that are great to inspire you. But that's not about how you grow in mastery. Growing in mastery is a practice of every day honing your craft, doing it better and better and better, and having the courage to reinvent yourself, doing it scared, right? That's why we have a mannequin head. That's why we have relatives. We practice on them and everything is therefore good, right? So those are the challenges, and that's what makes it so exciting. So I know you have a few questions for me. So what would they be?
Yeah. Can you tell me about your best and or worst experience working on stage with all of these greats?
Yes. So my best experiences were obviously seeing our work, whether it be in a theater or a stadium or where these big venues with massive staging and so like, wow. And just seeing the collection come to life. And then a standing ovation. There's something incredible about stepping on a stage and thousands of people standing out. Amazing experiences to be with Trevor and to banter backwards and forwards, joking and laughing on stage and making it fun. Saying to Trevor before we went out on stage, come on, Trevor, let's go and have a good time. Because Trevor will get very nervous. And I would be nervous, but I had a different way of presenting that nervousness. And then I realized it's not about Trevor and myself. It's about how we serve. It's about the difference we can make to other people's lives. And it's about the audience, not about me. And that for me took a lot of pressure off of that. some of the worst experiences. I remember the first time I assisted Trevor on stage, I walked on the stage with a cart full of hairpins and all of his things. And I tripped over a cable that was laying on the stage, part of the lighting cable, which hadn't been taped down. Everything went flying. And that was my entree. And Trevor just looks, and I'm just like, I have to pick up 1,000 pins, and I'm freaking out. That was not a lot of fun. One time was that actually this happened a few times. Trevor became quite ill, and we were billed to do some big shows around the world. And we went to the United States to do this show. And Trevor had made a video saying, "I'm so sorry, I can't be with you tonight, la, 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 la." And so the video was played to a full house, it's packed, and they want to see Trevor Sorbie. They don't want to see me. And they're told now that he's not going to be there. And I walk on stage, and I actually got booing and groaning. And I stood there with with tears in my eyes. And I said, "I'm really sorry that Trevor is not here. Please give me a chance. I will give you my heart. I will do everything I can to make tonight worthwhile for you. But please just give me this chance." And I did my best, and I had a standing ovation. Yeah. And then I had to repeat it again and again and again, because Trevor still was not well. Italy was very difficult. Italy, there are a lot of male hairdressers there. It's a whole different energy. That was a very tough audience, but I won them. I was determined to win every audience. And today, I don't think I could do it today, but I was younger. And, I think when you're younger, you have a little bit more of a reckless spirit. And I think that's what, creates that magic. But from every failure, there's such a great lesson to learn. As they say, you either win or you learn, right? And the learning and the discovery is just so profound that, I'm so grateful I've had this extraordinary career, which now I'm devoted to share and help other people. I was blessed when somebody said to me, "Great beginnings last a lifetime. If you want to be the best, work with the best in the world. Don't compromise that. Do it afraid." And it stayed true. And always be a lifelong learner. Always be open to learn and grow. Never stay still. Always move on. It's dangerous to sit at the table of success too long. And as they say, if you're standing still, life is actually moving forward. So if you're standing still, you're actually moving backwards. And that's a sad place to be, because that's not life. Life is living. Life is progressing. And I think some of the most successful people in this world that are happy have a sense of progression. Progression is alive. Serving is alive. When you serve others, you feel alive. And that to me is now the most important thing that I can do. So yeah, it's been an incredible blessing. And I'm just grazing over the surface of this journey, because it's just been, there's so many things that have happened along the way. It's like, oh my gosh, so much more to say and tell. But when I went to Vidal Sassoon's and was so scared and thought I was going to get fired, I didn't realize that years later I would be sitting with Vidal Sassoon doing a book signing with him. I'd never realized that he would write the foreword for my book and all the things that happened. So, you've just got to go for it, be daring and just go for it, because you just don't know what's around the corner. And when people say, "Oh, I should have done that back then," or, time is the most precious commodity we have. And if you think, "Well, I'll do it next year," you've just wasted another year of your life. And when people want to learn from me, it's so powerful when they say, "I'm going to do it right now." "Oh, I'll do it next year, Viv." Well, what makes you think I'm going to be around next year? Right? So when you're looking at that, it's pretty amazing. So I just want to thank you for being with us today. I think we just lost Angel. She just got kicked off the internet. But on our next adventure, it's about going to the United States of America. And that was quite a challenging journey to go there. but it was pretty extraordinary journey as well. So I'm going to share that with you. So what's the moral of the story today? Work with the best of the best. There's no substitute for hard work, as old-fashioned as that may sound. And do what you love. Find the passion, find the thing that you love the most, and that will be the most rewarding and the most fulfilling. So Angel's just coming back, and we're just going to say thank you. You're back.
Our power just went out in the salon. I think the heat, it has something to do with the heat. I think the whole neighborhood is out. So
there we go. Just as well, we're at the end. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you found this interesting and inspiring. What's your big takeaway from today?
Oh my gosh, I think just learning your story in general is always just so inspiring. And I agree. If you, somebody once told me that if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to go find a different room.
Yes,
I think that that's true, especially for your career. You've been surrounded by these amazing people for so long, and you now are sharing that. And I'm very lucky to have you as my mentor. And yeah, thank you.
Great. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So, thank you guys so much for being with us. We're sorry that our lovely Angel had the power outage due to the heat taking place where she is. So thank you guys. I hope you found this interesting. Please, in the chat, do let us know what's your takeaway. What did you learn? And of course, if you want to connect with me, very, very simple. My name, Vivienne Mackinder, on Instagram, on Facebook. My website's Vivienne Mackinder. If you'd like for me to help you and coach you and be able to take you to that next level, you're a phone call away. Don't waste time. Let's create some magic together. Thanks for watching, guys, and bye for now.